at the camp. Oh, I'm glad it's being recorded.
That's me.
I need more this for posterity. But anyway, so I looked at different schools, and I was just a knucklehead 17-year-old senior at Jesuit High School in New Orleans, and I just wanted to play basketball. I mean, I think a lot of kids that come to Georgetown and go to school all over the country, that's really what they're thinking about is they want to play. You know, do I want to get a major in English and go to law school? Yeah, I'll do that. But that's way down the list of things I want to accomplish. I want to play ball. And so that's what my focus was. Well, my gurus were my family, my mother and father, and my high school basketball coach, Kevin Trower. And so really they kind of refined my search in my head. You know, I'm thinking, oh, I can go to Kentucky. I can go to, you know, all the Tennessee. Oh, man, this is great. Well, they said, no, you're going to go to a Catholic school and a Catholic school that's not a basketball factory. So I had worked the things around. I had communicated with Marquette and Boston College. I went to visit Holy Cross, and Bob Cousy was there, and he said he was looking forward to me visiting the campus. I talked to Ed Hickey, who was the coach up at Marquette at the time I was being recruited. So it kind of came down to that. And then I went to visit Georgetown, and oh my God, I've gone through all my life looking for model people, people I can model my behavior, people I can aspire to be like, because I have so much respect for them. Well, Georgetown's captain of the team was a fellow named Jim Christie. And he was a great guy, great player. And when I came up to Georgetown, it just so happened it was the junior senior prom weekend. That didn't hurt. And
great timing.
I know, they knew I was from New Orleans, so let's work this out. So anyway, Jim showed me all through Georgetown, showed me all the university. Coach O'Keefe asked me to play in a scrimmage 3-on-3, and Jimmy and Chuck Devlin and 4 other guys, we went down to McDonough and played a couple of games. And I was thinking that back then they didn't have any tape of me, you know, so they didn't know, you know, they see it in the paper. There must have been a reason why he had that honor, had the honors in Louisiana, but they didn't know what I was like. So I felt pretty good after it was over, and O'Keefe was very excited. He said Bobby Verga had come to visit them 2 weeks before, and you know, okay, but I like you. I want you to come, you know. And I said, well, that's great. You know, Bobby Verga went on to have a spectacular career at Duke, and he played in the ABA and that kind of thing. But I love Georgetown. You know, I came out of high school very young for my age. I didn't make 18 until my second semester, my freshman year. But I wanted a different experience than New Orleans. I knew I was going to go back to New Orleans. I knew I was going to go to law school. I knew all of that stuff, but I wanted to see something different. And going from New Orleans with all its history and all the fun things that go on and everything that goes on in New Orleans, but then you go to Washington, D.C. and wow, you know, that just blew me away. I mean, I said, we drove by John F. Kennedy's house that he lived in when he was a senator. He was president at the time that I went there. And we went by the Capitol and the White House and all of the things that I just said, this is the place for me. A lot of my friends went to LSU, and so they went to watch the football team, go to fraternity parties, and then start their jobs, you know, and I just wanted more out of college than that. And so people would ask me after it was over, says, well, what fraternity were you in? I went in a fraternity. I was in the basketball fraternity. That was good enough for me. I just wanted, and anyway, when O'Keefe was talking to me about it, he said, I have these great recruits that are coming in town. I have Chicago New World is a newspaper in Chicago, and they have an All-American team too. And I was on the 3rd team of that team. And Frank Hollandoner, who was the center of the Georgetown team, he was on the 5th team. So he says, I've got you. I've got Frank Hollandoner, he's 6'11", 7 foot. I've got Steve Sullivan, who was a stone cold ace. He was great. I mean, he was the real deal. And Bobby Ward, Neil Heskin, Jimmy Liddy. Jimmy Liddy was Mr. Biddy in Bridgeport, Connecticut, in Fairfield, Connecticut. Okay. So, great point guard.
So you had a stacked crew.
We did. And O'Keefe said this to us, which, was kind of hinky, but he lived up to it. He says, if I can't get into the NIT or get an invite into the NCAAs with this recruiting team, I'm going to quit. And after my junior year, he quit. So anyway, but it was a different system back then. Tom O'Keefe, bless his heart, he was a coach there since 1960. He was a great basketball player for Georgetown before that, but he had to have a side job to pay for things at home. Sure. And so he sold rings and senior rings, and he rented graduation gowns. So our freshman team, Tom Coleman, he had a law school scholarship. So, I mean, that's kind of the budget that you're thinking, this is what. So I like to think back, and I said, you took a trip to Chicago and you got a guy from New Orleans. That must have broke the budget all the way over. You didn't have to go up the interstate and go to Jersey and Connecticut and New York and get all your players, which they did before and after I was there.
So we're gonna move around a little bit. So coming from the Bayou and then coming to DC, which was Chocolate City at that time. But again, you're on the Hilltop, so you're still kind of not in Chocolate City, but you're in DC. What were the dynamics for you if you decided to venture off campus, or was there anything that kind of had your worlds collide? Was there a huge cultural shift for you going from the Bayou to Georgetown?
No, none at all.
None at all.
We talked about that. I grew up in a time, and I consider myself a transition person, and we're going to get to that. But everything was separate but equal where I was from. So I come to Georgetown. I had no prejudices. I had that in my heart. And so, yes, I was in Georgetown. You didn't see too many colorful people in Georgetown. But I belonged to GUCAP. I don't know if they still have that. Georgetown University's Civil Action Program, Community Action Program. So you sign up for that, and they give you things to do in town. Well, I signed up for it because I was in the sodality at Jesuit High School, which means you do things in the city, good things, conscientious things. So what they gave me was I got to teach basketball to 10 kids in Southeast. So I said, okay, where's Southeast? So I'm driving my car.
Southeast is not the Hilltop. Michael Graham's from Southeast.
Oh, there you go.
Michael Graham, shout out. Anytime I get Michael Graham in the conversation, I get him in.
Sounds good deal. Good deal. Well, so I got in my car. I drove into that neighborhood, didn't feel threatened or anything like that. And with Louisiana license plates on the back of my car, pulled up. The kids met me at the playground. I did some basic things with them, showed them fundamentals of passing and shooting. And I had 10 kids. And for a certain part of time, I said, kind of huddle around me, kids. I'm getting some funny looks. But it was all good, and I did that probably 10 times at least. It was like once a week. And so, I didn't have any problem with the transition. Now, obviously it was a transition. And, you and I have talked about this before, and I'll talk about it later, about the history of where college basketball was, where the world was back in 1963.
Okay. Your highlight reel, I'm sure if we have footage, would be of a showman, and I forget how you were described, a showman and a holler guy.
I was a holler guy, yeah.
Holler guy.
Right.
So I take that as meaning you were a bit talkative and didn't mind letting people know, you were giving them the business. Something like that.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I wasn't a trash talker.
No.
I didn't believe in trash talk. Didn't believe in thumping my chest when I made a basket or anything like that. I wasn't taught like that by Kevin Trower. But one example I can tell you specifically, Kevin, who was a big advocate of John Wooden and Hank Iba and all those great coaches, he taught us. He said, now, if you're on the weak side and you're guarding your guy, and somebody's on the other side of the court, the strong side, and he sees the guy shoot, he yells out boards. And so I'm guarding the guy. You take 2 steps off, you turn around and you box him off. So me, that's what I was taught, that, years and years and years. So I'm guarding Jay Gibbons, who's one of the forwards on the team. And the guy shoots on the other side. I take a step back, boards. And I go to box him off the boards. And Jake goes over to O'Keefe and says, "That's bothering me."
You a bother guy. You're a bother guy too.
I said, "Are you kidding? It's something that I do. Maybe you don't agree with it, but if it bothers you, I'm going to do it twice as much. Then that'll throw you off your game, and that'll be a good defensive move." But O'Keefe came to me and he said, "Don't do that anymore." And I was shocked.
You had
I grew up in a time where the coach said something, you did that. How high, you jumped that high. So there was no other question about it. So I was a holler guy with a muzzle.
With a muzzle. Well, I was a holler guy with the muzzle as well. So I think you and I relate to that on that level. But one thing I would like to talk about is your legendary game where you had 21 points. You were probably not playing a lot that year during the season, but there might have been an injury or something, and you were forced into service, and you performed very, very well with your parents in town.
Right.
Can you give me that? Can you take us back to that?
Sure. Well, this is in my senior year, and Jack McGee is now our coach. So when I'm working with O'Keefe and I'm saying, well, Jimmy Brown's going to graduate. This is great because I'm going to get to play.
Shout out to Jimmy Brown.
Jimmy Brown. Oh, Jimmy was wonderful. What a great player. And I said, John Prendergast was the year before. Now he's gone. So Jimmy Brown, and then, so we got some sophomores like Bruce Steinbreckner and Dennis Caesar and people like that. They come in, and McGee comes in and he says, "Screw the seniors. I'm going to play these sophomores and juniors that I have. I'm looking to the future." Sure. So, again, it pass it around. But, and I had another great game along the way too. But senior day, as everybody knows, lots of colleges have that: football, basketball, baseball, senior day. So I told my parents about it. I said, he's going to start me in the game. I didn't say I was going to play the whole game, but I said, he's going to start me. So my dad and my mom flew up and they came to the game, and I was really excited, got to start the game, and I scored 21 points. So the irony of all of that is, I played like I've been playing for the last 3 years. And so McGee comes into the locker room afterwards, and everybody's excited and they're saying, "Great game, Peter, great game." And I'm saying, "Thanks, thanks guys." And he comes over to me and he says, "Why didn't you play like that all year?" So I didn't say anything because you don't say anything.
You taught well.
So I said, "Thank you, coach." And that was it. Well, the other thing that I sent you was the Madison Square Garden game. Mm-hmm. And that was equally as exciting for me because it's in New York City and Madison Square Garden.
The world's most famous arena.
It was fantastic. We got to play in Boston and played in the Garden and played in Philadelphia. All across the thing. It's a big thrill for a kid from New Orleans. Anyway, so Jimmy Brown turns his ankle. And we're losing to NYU with Barry Kramer and Mel Graham and all these guys that went on to be pros, and Happy Harrison. And so we're down by 12 points, and Jimmy turns his ankle. And so the coach looks down the bench, and I give an elbow to Neil Heskin, who's sitting next to me, who has a cast up to his knee. And I said, "Neil, I don't think he's going to put you in." So anyway, he puts me in the game, and it's kind of like some of the guys that I knew in the pros. We called them instant offense. We call them IOs. And so Truck Robinson was our IO with the Jazz. And anyway, I got in there. I scored 12 points, including the 2 points that got us ahead. And it was kind of funny afterwards because they asked me. They said, "Well, how does it feel to shoot the shot that won the game?" And I said, "Oh, it feels great. I knew it was going in. I knew it was going in before I got the pass." And they said, "Well," and they said, "Well, Coach O'Keefe said the play was supposed to be, you were supposed to throw it down low to Frank Allendona, and he was supposed to shoot it in." And I looked to him and I said, no, Frank was covered. And Frank said, no, I wasn't. It was no way I was going to let somebody else shoot that last shot. So I shot it, it went in. And then afterwards, you know, New York City, there were 7 or 8 newspapers that were asking me a question. It was kind of a real corny, hokey story about a kid that comes off the bench and does real well. And
but we love those stories.
Yeah, I do. And you do. So anyway, they asked me what I wanted. And I said, I want to call my mom and dad and tell them about it. And so O'Keefe chimes in, I'll pay for the call. And I said, thanks. You could have made it happen a lot earlier.
A lot sooner.
Yeah, right. But I didn't say that. I just thought that as in my mind. But it was a thrill to be able to do that. And, you know, the next game we played Villanova with Bill Melchione, who was leading the country in scoring. And I was a designated defensive player in the mold of Gene Smith. And I was guarding Melchione, and I held him to 14 points, which I thought was an accomplishment. But we had Christmas vacation, came back, and I was right there on the bench. So anyway, it was frustrating because I really believed in my abilities. And O'Keefe, when he left, he gave me one of those Instagrams, or not Instagrams, but telegrams. And he wrote on it, don't ever lose your confidence.
You haven't.
And I went, well, you sure did a lot to try to help me lose it. No, but I never lost. I never lost.
This is the thing sometimes, Peter. Sometimes, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I don't know O'Keefe. I don't know McGee. I just know what the history books say. Yeah. And I know what they say about you, but just in one conversation with you, the confidence exudes itself.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing. And like I said, I consider you a treasure. You're a treasure. And I'd like to talk about Bernard White.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm talking to someone that actually was in the locker room with him.
Sure.
And you know, this is the locker room.
Right.
And Bernard White was the first Black to play at Georgetown. And I'd like for you to kind of give us a view, give us what it was like, whether it was significant, insignificant. Just share with us, give us the insider's view because you were there.
Sure. Well, Bernie was a great guy. I'm sorry that he's passed on, but he was a great guy. And, you know, one day he wasn't there, and then the next day he was. And you kind of asked me, how was he accepted and everything? He was accepted immediately. I never felt any animus about him, and nobody else on the team said, oh, you know, there's the Black guy. None of that was there. He had a lot of talent, but he didn't play either. So is that O'Keefe who recruited him? Is that McGee who didn't play him? I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm looking at the same thing. Hey, I'm not Black, but I'm not playing either.
You worrying about your playing time? Yes.
Well, yeah, and Bernie and I used to joke about it, and I hope I don't get emails about this or Instagrams about this. But I told you, I was joking with him, and I said, you know, we sit on a bench together, and we got our name tags on the back of our warm-ups. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, you've got White on the back of your warm-ups, and I have Michelle on the back of mine. I said, I'm going to take mine off, and I'm going to put Black on there. And he almost fell off the bench. He thought that was the funniest thing going. I said, I think I might get in trouble if I do that, so I better not do that. But again, we were friends. We didn't go to the 89 together, but, you know, at practice, during the games, warm-ups and everything, we were very good friends and close friends. Yeah. So, you know, again, I told you that other story about him saying, I asked him, he said, where are you going? I'm going to Tulane Law School. He says, well, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Stanford Law School. And I said, holy goodness, you know, Stanford. I said, I know you. You don't have great grades. How'd you get into Stanford? And he went, quotas, baby, quotas.
Now, if that is offensive to anyone, I think you're taking it out of context. When he told me, I laughed my behind off.
Oh, sure.
I thought it was a great joke. I thought it was a great joke.
And
I just
think it was priceless. Journey was priceless.
Yeah, I mentioned it because, again, I'm talking to someone that was there. So it's a cool factor for me. I think where Georgetown basketball what Georgetown basketball is now and what it was then, I think the evolution is pretty freaking awesome versus, something to highlight. I just think it's awesome. And if you could speak to how you felt as you saw Georgetown become a basketball powerhouse.
Sure.
What were your feelings from someone that was there pre that, like
right.
prior to that?
Right.
Like just your thought as a proud alumnus, right? Someone
Absolutely.
who has sweat in the game.
Right.
It's your program. Like you and I connected till the end of time, my friend.
Sure.
So what did that mean to you in the 80s to see that kind of start to happen? And even if you want to speak to once Coach Thompson arrived, I'd like to get it from your vantage point.
Absolutely. I'm down in New Orleans. We get the news that Georgetown has fired Tom Jag McGee because, he won 2 games or 3 games. He got fired the same time Press Maravich got fired at LSU because they had similar records. They played each other and LSU actually beat Georgetown. But I said, wow, I wonder who they're going to get to replace him. Had no clue about Morgan Wooten from DeMatha had applied for the job. He wanted the job, but they never offered it to him. And then they took a big step. And that's all the power to Georgetown. It took a lot of guts to hire John Thompson. He had no experience on the college level. He's an imposing person, great personality. I'm sure he interviewed well. But I said, wow, this is going to be interesting, to see how he recruits and how successful a team is going to be. And, he took his knocks the first 2 or 3 years, but then he built his own team. And I was so proud of him. Now, throughout the years, you and I have kind of talked about this. Coach Thompson came down to New Orleans to recruit. He came down to New Orleans at my invitation. I was a basketball coach in a local high school at Sam Barth, and I had a player who was 6'11", a white kid. And so there was a pickup tournament. I was playing in the tournament, and this kid was playing, and I was showcasing him. John Thompson's in the bleachers with my coach, Kevin Trower. And so he's looking, and he's obviously not impressed enough to say, I'm going to sign him right now. He's talking to my coach, and he says, I've got a lot of big guys, but I'm looking for a point guard. And so Kevin tells him, well, at St. Augustine, the high school that competes with Jesuit, they've got a 6'5" point guard named Steve Martin. And so John gets very interested in Steve Martin, signed Steve Martin, and he was a great player at Georgetown.
Incredible player at Georgetown.
Yeah, and he was captain of the team. I like the fact you were captain of the team 2 years. That shows a lot about you. That's great. But,
only thing I will add to that, the captains at Georgetown were picked by Coach Thompson.
Oh,
it wasn't a democracy, right? So Peter, I always took that like, okay,
I got you.
Does that make me a coach's pet? Like, what does that? So it was one of those things where it's a gift and a curse, because you and I both know in the locker room sometimes the last thing you want is that perception that you're the coach's pet, right? Because you lose all credibility with the team.
Right.
So I made it a point. I had already established what type of player I was, which was I'm doing all the dirty work. So I nothing changed in the way that I approach practice in the game. So I had that as a fall. See, that's what happens when you have really few basketball skills. Like, I can play hard every single time I get on the court. But thank you. It is quite it was quite an accomplishment to me. So yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
All of the descriptions of you as a lockdown defensive player, I love that. I appreciate that. I was that at certain times in my career, but that you were captain of the team 2 years, even if John Thompson chose you, that says a lot about you. And,
thank you, sir.
And your leadership and all that good stuff. So
thank you.
Anyway, so Steve Martin goes up to Georgetown and just has a great career. He worked with the local professional team. He was athletic director at Dillard University here.
Work with the NBA?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He was with the Jazz. Well, not the Jazz, excuse me, the Hornets.
Hornets.
He was executive vice president with them. And actually, I got to talk to him a lot. We talked about a lot of things. He was going to come over to dinner because his wife said, his wife wanted to go to Africa, and my wife and I had gone there for a safari. We got pictures and books and all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, she really liked it, but unfortunately it never happened. Steve is commissioner of a basketball league. I don't know the numbers of it, but if you look up Steve Martin, that's what he's doing right now. He's doing great. But I haven't seen him or talked to him. Perry McDonald talked to him, but I haven't talked to him in a long time. But anyway.
But speaking of that, your connection with those players that are from from the city, from the state, that have gone to Georgetown, you've had solid relationships with a lot of our players out of Louisiana. Can you speak to that? How that's been beneficial?
I have.
You have not. Okay.
No.
We're gonna work on that.
I went to Jesuit. Absolutely. I went to Jesuit High School. Our big competitor was De La Salle. Now, Dwayne Bryant went to De La Salle. So I watched him very carefully as he was coming along because he was kicking the tails off of my school. Sure. So I always had high admiration for Dwayne. And I think Dwayne went on to coach at Georgetown Prep, if I'm not wrong. And, I just think that's terrific. Now, have Dwayne and I had a lot of contact? No, he's a Facebook friend of mine. And I love being Facebook friends. Now, Joy Monahan, we talked about that. She called me and she said, I'm going to be in town. She's originally from Baton Rouge. She's up in Chicago now, but I'm going to be in town and I want to get a couple of people together. This is typical of her, putting people together. Yes. Well, she got Daryl Owens, who was from Baton Rouge, and she got Perry, and she got me, and we went to have a pool boy at one of the sandwich places in Kenner because she had to jump on a plane or something like that. Well, we had the best time. It was so good. And I got a chance to meet Perry and to find out, he went to Carver and he was an All-American at Carver. After we had touched base and, we enjoyed our company, I looked up and I saw him as a freshman. He played in the finals. That's awesome. His number was 10. He made a lot more of that number than I ever did, but
he made a lot more of 10 than you did and I did of 22. Yes, he did.
Well, anyway, yeah, I don't know Greg Monroe. I saw him play in high school, but I didn't go up afterwards and say, hey, Hoya Saxa, give him a whole no, he kind of would have looked down at me and said, well, who are you? But things like that, I knew the guys that were going to Georgetown, but, I had this standoffish experience with John. And, backing it up, McGee had a really great season in 69-70. They went to the NIT. They actually played LSU in the first round.
I remember that. I remember hearing about that game. Yeah.
Well, I drove up to New Orleans and I came in and I told Jack hello and he, oh man, it's good to see you. He says, look, you in good shape? Yeah, I'm in good shape. And he says, I want you to play in the dummy scrimmage. You can be Pete. And I said, I can be Pistol Pete? Oh my God, my prayers are answered. So everybody was putting picks for me. I was shooting 30-footers. I said, I died and went to heaven. So I was good because I told him, I said, you're not going to stop him. You better cut off the other people.
Yeah, you can only hope to contain them. Correct. Yeah. You can only hope to contain
but LSU won by 2 points or something, but Georgetown made it to the NIT. And that's when we start talking about historical stuff. I'll tell you about that. But yeah, I had relationships with those players, the players on my team, Neil Heskin, now Bobby Ward, Jimmy Liddy. I'm in touch with them. And I'm happy with Facebook because I've been able to contact my old friends and we have fun exchanging stuff. We're supposed to get together in New Jersey in end of August. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I might have to crash that party.
Good.
I might have to crash that. I've been known to crash a few parties I haven't been invited to.
Good for you.
And that's what my goal with and my goal with Hoya locker room changes every week, right? But the central theme is anyone that put on the blue and gray, anyone that came through McDonough, anyone that was on the Hilltop, I have a connection to, and I think it's worth the conversation. I think it's worth the episode. I think it's worth connecting the dots. So, sure. I'm looking forward to tapping into some of your friends that came through the Hilltop. Right. And again, for future episodes, just to, again, I think we have something special there, and I want to take care of it. I mean, sure. I want the past to be present only as it relates to making present day and the future better. And knowing your stories and knowing what Georgetown means to you helps solidify, what it means to me. Because the way I'm talking to you now, Peter, I wasn't able to talk this way when I was 17, 18, 19 years
Right, exactly.
And if anything, maybe this will encourage the powers to be to create scenarios where that can happen.
Yeah.
Because, I look at the 21-22 team, and I'm super excited for them because, they won the Big East championship.
Right.
Right. And that now, the bar is higher now. Right. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in this coming season. But any opportunity that they have to talk to someone that came before them, just to share a story or two that may be inspirational, motivational, I think is a cool deal. So that's why you're here, because, and that in your conversational game is through the roof. So with that, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you experienced, coming up, once you got to the Hilltop and after the Hilltop.
Sure. Well, as I said,
I know that's a mouthful, but
we're definitely going to run into the next episode. I remember telling you I was a lawyer. I charged by the word. So anyway, coming there, had a great freshman year, and then doing the other 3 years, but loving the university. I'd go home and I'd say, what did you do on the weekend? We went out to Campus Lake and we got a canoe in. I went out to the Potomac and I watched the shells go back and forth, the Hoya shells. And I went to the 89. I was a waiter at the 89 at the Tombs. And I would be there on Wednesday night when the chimes would sing, and I just said, that's what Georgetown meant to me. I was disappointed with the basketball thing, which is a big disappointment. But boy, the people there, the teachers there, and the university itself just was just such a great experience. And I loved it. But hopefully with the next episode, I just want to go into what a different world it was in 1963 and before. I was born in 46. So, as I was growing up, there was a whole different environment. And then, we come to the fact I am a walking history book. I used to say that about other people that I met, that I'd be enthralled in listening. Edwin Edwards, our governor, who just passed away, I just loved listening to him talk because he would tell great stories. So historical stories. And so I was there in transition. I was there in 63 when Jesuit High School voluntarily integrated the school and recruited 12 African-Americans to be classmates, not athletes, but to be in the classes. I was vice president of the student council. So I was on a committee, go sit with them in the cafeteria at lunch because nobody's doing that. And so, I appreciated that. And I loved that fact that I was in a different vein. Now, and I looked at Georgetown when they took the leap and they hired John, but they changed the whole environment there. I mean, we were, what do you mean that pair of socks? You want to throw that pair of socks away? I can put up those holes in that pair of socks, so you don't have to throw those away. That was the budget back then.
Why I'm
smiling? Made a commitment to be a big time basketball, and they did.
I'm smiling, Pete. The reason why I'm smiling is I just remember my freshman year, and we basically had 2 pair of shoes for the whole season. And again, and I'll share this with you, Peter. That was okay for me. Sure. Coming from, you know, not having, you know, college basketball aspirations, right? Let alone Georgetown on the academic level and moving that way. So if he would have told me I had to play barefoot, no pun intended, I might have. But I'm only saying this because it wasn't that Coach was so frugal. It's just he used every opportunity to let us know that you will not be on scholarship for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So, you know, just because you see 10 pair of socks over there, that's not, you know, you're gonna wear those socks till there's a hole.
There you go.
So it's just, you just jogged my memory with that. So yeah.
Now wait a second. You're a Nike person. I went to the John Thompson Center, and I loved seeing all the things there. And I saw that case, and they had at least 25 different pairs of shoes.
Yeah, but was there a lock on that case? Doesn't matter if you can see it. You might not be able to access it.
I had Chuck Taylor All-Star canvas high tops. That's what we got. And if you ran through the sole of it, too bad.
Oh, you got some newspaper for you to slide in there, right?
Exactly. So that was our athletic director.
I mean, it's like sometimes I look at old footage from back then, and because I spent a great deal professionally in the footwear and apparel industry, I'll immediately look at the footwear, and I'll look at some of the footwear we had. They look like shoes that had been worn for both practices. You know, you have a practice pair and a game pair.
Yeah, right.
I think we were all wearing practice and game. It was the same shoe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think like you touched on something. I always wanted to be born or a young adult during some of the most tumultuous times in history. Just because I think you find out a lot about yourself, you find out a lot about the country, you find out who's really for human beings or for human nature. Like you find out a lot about yourself. Whereas when times are going good and everybody's rolling, it's kind of easy. You kind of fall asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
Some of the times that you've experienced as a young adult, just in shaming your who you are incredible. And you know, probably that is another episode, but for the purpose of this episode, could you have envisioned Georgetown the way it is now? Could you have envisioned that when you were a student on the Hilltop?
Well, you have to tell me, how is Georgetown now?
So you don't see it as being any different now?
Oh, I see it as being 180 different.
The world is different. So
the world is absolutely different. Georgetown has developed the campus, and you know, within the guidelines of what the Georgetown neighborhood will let them do. But having a football field right in smack dab in the middle of the campus, that's awesome. Right. You know, having a place where you can get a hotel room and have a conference center. That's where I went for my last reunion. I said, wow, this is great. You know, we had the nursing school, we had the hospital, we had New South. I mean, that was a big deal, but we didn't have all of the infrastructure that you have now. And no, I think Georgetown's great. I remember being hustled to contribute, which of course I readily embraced because I have a lot to give back to Georgetown. But one of the things that we were going through, and they said, we're going to build a new place here, a basketball place. And I said, oh, well, gee, what are you going to do with McDonough? You know, we got a lot of history there. And so he says, well, we're going to build this place. It'll be great. And I said, well, how many people will it hold? Oh, 9,000 people. I said, 9,000. If you're going to build a gym, why don't you make it like Duke has? Well, you know, why not 13,000, 14,000? He said, the people in Georgetown wouldn't allow us to build it that big. Now, as it ran its course, they didn't build a gym. They built the Thompson Center, which is spectacular. It's great. And I love the stories of John and him sitting next to the Blessed Virgin Mary and saying a prayer outside. You know, wow, I said, wow, I see a different John Thompson than I ever knew. Of course, I never knew him anyway, but to see that he used to say those prayers before the game, you know, that really meant a lot to me, that he was that fine a person. So, but yeah, you know, we can talk about history the next time. We talked about basketball this time. We can talk about history and interject a little basketball. But yeah, freshman John F. Kennedy was assassinated. So we were supposed to bring football back that year. We were playing Slippery Rock, and one game, and you know, we hadn't had football since 1940, and you know, and then Kennedy gets shot in November, and they say nope, absolutely no football, and everybody was in a fog just walking around D.C. at the time, as everybody was in the entire country. But then Lyndon Johnson comes in and he says, you know, all those things that John F. Kennedy was trying to pass, you all need to do that, because just in his memory, and all the civil rights legislation that he was able to accomplish was amazing. And it was historic. I mean, Lyndon Johnson did so much in there. You know, he's a very abrasive kind of guy. And his daughter went to Georgetown. Lucy Baines Johnson was in the nursing school at Georgetown when I was there. So, but yeah, history-wise, for sure. You know,
and see, coming from,
I went to school with Bill Clinton. He was a year behind me. You know, Roger Altman. He was the deputy Treasury Secretary. Bill Clinton hired him. There's so many famous people. John Saunders is a nationally known surgeon. He works out of Johns Hopkins. All these guys were my fellow students. And then I'm so proud of them now because they're doing so well and famous. You know, I think Georgetown's great for that. You know.
Well, I guarantee you, the next show that the next episode that I have you on, I'm gonna make sure I have another historian that's on your level, because what's always so striking to me is that when we talk about Georgetown, and when we get away from just the famous people that have gone there, and we just think about like Georgetown wasn't built to be an athletic powerhouse.
No.
But you think about what the university has accomplished, not just in basketball, but in women's soccer and men's soccer.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, putting the football, now we have Shaw, we have the football field on campus.
Right.
You know, we've always been solid in track and field. I remember John Gregoric when I went to school.
Oh, yeah.
He was incredible. I just think once you put all that together, it's so captivating to me. It's so interesting to me. So, right. You know, these very perspectives, I just think we need to showcase them more, and they don't have to all be famous people. Even though, you know, in New Orleans, I'm sure there's some statues and stuff floating around the U somewhere. But this has been awesome. You know, again, I can't thank you enough for your time on a Sunday. Give my best to the missus. I know you just celebrated an anniversary in Paris, of all places, you romantic devil, you. But yeah, I mean, I would like for you to leave the Hoya locker room faithful with something, you know, because I like the way you communicate, but if you could just leave us with something for the next time, in anticipation of the next time, I'd like for you to give us a nice sign off, please.
Well, thank you, Gene. You know, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, because what you've done in setting up this forum that you have, you're bringing all these people together who haven't had a chance to say how they feel about all these things that are going on in the world, not just at Georgetown, not just Washington, not the town of Georgetown, you know, in the world. And you're giving them a chance to come in and do that and share their experiences, which is terrific. I mean, I've enjoyed watching some of the old Hoya locker room episodes. I'm honored to be number 51. I'm going to go out and make a ring with 51 on it. And,
got some bling in there.
Absolutely. But Georgetown, you know, there's no other experience. You know, you could go to school in New York City, you could go in Philadelphia, you could go to all those other different places. It's not going to be an experience like you'll get at Georgetown. I tell that to all the incoming students. So we have one more story. Joy Monahan, you know, our shaker and mover and shaker. We have a party in Louisiana, in New Orleans, for all the incoming freshmen at Georgetown. So I always go to it every year because I want to see the wide-eyed people who are going to go up there, and I go over and talk to them. This is what you got to look out for. You know, the 89 is 2 streets to the right and over here. And so I get a good laugh about that. Well, I was rummaging through some of my old clippings, and I see this picture of the Georgetown party back in 2003. Wow. And so I see the article. Nell Nolan writes this article, and it says, oh, and Peter Michell was there, and you know, first recruit from Georgetown. You know, I said, wow, I got pub back then. But there's another picture of Joy. She was an incoming freshman in 2003. Now, we probably said hello to each other, but who knew that we would be friends? I went to visit Chicago, and she and I went to a Cubs game and had a ball. You know, she's just a wonderful person, and I'm glad she's doing what she's doing. She needs to do more of it. But to answer your question, you know, if you get a chance to go to Georgetown, you should go. It's a great school. You'll be loyal to it for the rest of your life, as I am, and it's all good.
It's all good. And if anything, if we represent, I think the very best of Georgetown. Not so much us as individuals, but us collectively, my friend.
Right.
So this has been very awesome. I look forward to doing this again. I think this will be my highest rated episode.
Wait,
wow.
I want to get to a point where it's the Gene and Pistols show.
All I want to get to the point, Peter, is I can handle the technical difficulties, because I can tell you this. We had difficulties this morning, and you were so calm and cool, man. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I'm looking forward to the questions that Markham said he had for me.
Oh, yeah. And Markham has very good
questions. To crossing swords with Markham.
You take care of yourself, my friend. Until next time.
I will. Thanks again.
Stay blessed.